NHL 94 fans, take note. So I got some videos here, 4 of them, and then after I got a interview with Chaos. You're looking at video of fighting in NHL 94. How is this possible? Well, the reason why is you have a man named Chaos who is trying to fix what EA took out, because when they originally bowed down to the pressure of the NHL to remove fighting from the game of NHL 94, Chaos has worked hard to put it back into the game. This is the first clip I have, and this is the very beginning of having fighting put back. And the second clip, you can see it advanced a little bit further, and it's more polished, so to speak. And this is what we need. This is what we want. This is what I've been asking for. This is amazing stuff. NHLPA 93, this is the third clip. NHLPA 93 had fighting in it, blood. Chaos decided, you know what? Enough is enough. Time for a change. We're putting it back in the game of NHL 94, and here it is. These clips are amazing. I can't wait to see the final product come out in the next little while. Good job, the Chaos. So if you want to hear about it, how it was done, what was required to do, I have a chat with... Oh, here's the final clip I have. Look how good this looks. Just amazing stuff. I can't wait to play this. Anyways, my discussion with Chaos is coming up. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learned something about how it was required to put fighting back in the game, and I hope you appreciate all the effort that was required to do so. Yeah, be ready for that. It's something that I love in previous games, and I'm disappointed they didn't include it in NHL 94. Whatever. Hopefully people like you are able to rectify that.
We're trying. There's the fighting, the checks for fighting are still in the code. They just don't lead to anything.
Right.
That code's been removed. But what's good is that all the proper checks are still in place. So essentially what just needs to be done is add the code in, point those checks to the proper location of the code, and then process that code, right? So 92 did fights differently than 93. 92 was just after the whistle. And 93, they started using the fight attribute. And 92 was just basically impact value. If your impact value was high enough, and you could increase the impact value by continuing to check players.
Yes.
So it would boost it like 200. It's a very large value. Actually, that code is still in 94. They never took it out. The boost of impact after the whistle is blown. That's why you can check anyone after the whistle, because the weight is so small compared to the impact. The impact is used during for checking as well, and so it just disables the weight out of the calculation, because the impact that's added after the whistle is so high because of checking. So yeah, when you check and the impact value is set for your player, and that'll decrease every frame, kind of like someone hits you and you're like
yeah,
maybe you haven't fully recovered yet, right? So eventually you recover from the hit, but if you get hit again, it hurts more than the first hit. So they actually kind of added that into the game, which is really
quick
neat.
succession. Just keep going, keep hitting, and eventually
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, if you keep one guy hits a guy, that guy doesn't fall down, but then almost immediately someone else hits him. That guy's more likely to fall down than not, because now he's got two massive impacts to his impact value. But anyway, yeah, so that's how fighting worked in 92. We would you keep checking after the whistle, the impact value goes really high, and then it starts a fight. In 93, they used the fight rating, and there's a little bit of RNG. Also, it uses total checks, total knockdowns, actually. So if the player gets knocked down, there's a counter. And it doesn't matter home or away, it adds to the counter. And 1 to the counter every time someone falls down. They get checked and they fall down, right? Successful check. And then once the counter gets to a certain value, then it starts to the next check. It'll use the fight rating of the players and be like, all right, these guys are ready to fight or not, depending on it. And then they get into the fight. And it's actually pretty neat. Looking at the 93 code, when you punch a player, it actually, depending on that player's energy, the puncher, the player will move back farther or back less. Like it actually affects their X velocity, how they move on the screen, which is pretty neat. And then, so like a player who's been skating for a while, let's say you have line changes on, right? And the player's been skating for a while, right? So he doesn't have a lot of energy. The fight's going to be over pretty quickly.
Yep.
It's pretty neat. And then there's also injuries, right?
Yeah. Only 93.
So that uses the check rating of the player that won the fight, whether or not to cause an injury to the other player. So I'm looking the 93 code I'm probably going to use because it's a little bit more sophisticated. It's pretty neat. I've taken that code out of 93 so far. I've analyzed it. I went through it, figuring out because some of the variable locations in the RAM are different between 93 and 94. So I need to map that all out. I need to map out the subroutines that already exist in 94, like the skating stuff is in there and things like that. I have to direct that to the right spot. And then the other problem is going to be the sprites, and that's probably going to be the biggest problem. We don't really know how the sprites work right now. We have an idea, but the problem is going to be putting the sprites in the game and then changing some sprite tables to know where to point at and what sprites to use for the fight and things like that. And the other thing that's probably difficult is displaying the banner, so it tells you who's fighting.
Yeah,
93. That's the other part. So I haven't really gotten through all that, but those are like that's an afterthought. We get the fighting in the game first. Add that some of that stuff after, but obviously the animations have to be in there. And so McMarcus and I we're kind of working on that. But I do want to get the code in, even if I have to use current animations in it, just as a proof of concept that guess what, the fighting is in here. Now we're just waiting for the sprites, and that'll be pretty soon.
With the sprites, are you going to be including new sprites in the game, or are you going to be taking away an existing sprite and then calling that up? So essentially, are we going to be losing a sprite in NHL 94, or are you going to be able to have the ability to put in new ones that will be called upon when needed?
Yeah, so losing a sprite is easy. We can do that. I'm trying not to lose sprites, right? I want to add sprites into the game and not remove any that are in the game. There's a lot of animations. I don't even know if they're all used in 94, but it might be better to add. Now the problem is the ROM size is fixed on the regular original ROM. We have a decompressed version, so we have extra space to play with. But the thing that needs to be figured out is what needs to be moved, how to copy it in. Is there another table that needs to be moved and that needs to be copied? Something needs to be copied into that as well. Those are the questions now. So, like right now, the 94 sprites they're actually decompressed. The sprites are still compressed. So, there's compressed meaning there's a tile of one sprite in the animation, and they might use a couple of those same tiles to make for the full animation, right? And so instead of always adding that tile, they just cut the tile out and they say, yeah, this one's going to be used twice here and there. It just makes it, it's a space saving measure, right? So a lot of the images in 94 were done like that, but they've been decompressed. We've added space as far as like team logos and the splash screens and things like that. We've figured that out already. And we've been able to add more teams to the ROM. So we have like a 30 team ROM, a 32 team ROM, instead of the 28 that's in the game. So we can use that decompressed ROM, add the sprites. I just need to figure out exactly what to move to the open area. I need to figure out what needs to point to that new sprite table and things like that. So it'll be, I'm confident we will get this done. Hopefully soon.
Well, we got to set up.
I would say months.
GoFundMe or something that way we could take you, McMarcus, and anybody else away from your regular scheduled jobs, and you can focus directly on this and still get a paycheck, so you're not losing anything. This is what we have to establish
I'm sure.
for you gentlemen. We could do it. Is there any thought maybe the code exists in somebody's hands, and I'm talking about
The source
because
code, you mean?
yeah, like somewhere when I talked to Mikey a long time ago, he was of the opinion that somebody still has the NHL 94 with fighting still in it, because that was one that was thrown, used until a point and then it was removed. So that beta version, that one that was being shown off to, this has to exist somewhere. And if somebody can get their hands on this, that may be the holy grail. Has anybody even tried going down this path to see if we could get our hands on this, to rattle some cages to get our hands on this type of code?
Yeah, the problem is everyone back then did things on floppies, right? So 3.5-inch floppies, maybe
Yeah.
5.25-inch floppies. Floppies don't really stand the test of time. Is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible. But I don't. The other problem too you have in that situation is the 92 and 93 were done by a different team than the 94 team. So is there a problem? Did they, we have the 92 source. It's been, I don't know how, probably in some EA hack, someone was able to get it. I don't know if the 94 still, I know Mikey has asked Mark Lesser, and I don't know if I don't think he still has it. I think, you got to remember these guys programmed this and they've probably made 30 other games since then. And it's not like we have now where you could put it on like GitHub, and you have it forever, or you have it on some, nice disk drive or, hard drive or whatever that you could store somewhere. A lot of stuff was done on floppies because it was such a small size, and floppies are easily lost. So
Yeah.
is it possible? Yeah, it's absolutely possible. And the other thing too is there's really only one programmer or two programmers working, right? It's not like now where there's like, there could be 100 guys working on it. So there's 100 guys that have a copy. So you're really depending on, maybe 3 copies at the most, one by the studio, one by the production, EA, and then one by the team, right?
So what would
Or
be
the main programmer.
So what would be a roadmap, as long as there's no unforeseen hurdles, no interruptions? Like, what would be your ideal roadmap for having fighting in the game? When do you think, you were saying soon? What do you think before you have some sort of rudimentary version of it in the game? And granted, it may break the game too when you start fighting. It may cause it to crash. I'm just, what are your thoughts on when we might be able to see it in one way, shape, or another?
Oh yeah. Well, I'd like to get the code in within a couple weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And then
If I could give you some advice, stretch it out, get
concept.
the GoFundMe on, so that way you could just really wring out every dollar from this project, right? Don't rush it. Take your
I don't
time.
know how many people are going to pay for this.
But yeah, that's my suggestion, is just take your time on it. But
yeah, no, it's I want to get a proof of concept. I want to get the code in the game and have the code work, and then after that, it's going to be the sprites. And then we can go from there. We can refine it. We could tune it. We give it options. The other thing too is like adding a menu option to turn fighting on and off. You can add that in. But so it's there's a little bit of steps involved. But like I said, I have the code separated, all the code I need right now to actually put it in the game. I just have to find a good way to put it in. I have to compile that code and then add it into the ROM. So right now, actually the other day I was talking with Nick Marcus about compiling, just maybe if we were able to take, I have a decompiled version of 94 that I put into a decompiler or disassembler. And can we somehow figure out how to compile that? That might be easier, because then we could just add the code wherever we want, and the compiler and the linker will automatically route it the way it needs to be. And it would make changes to any type of code a lot easier down the line. We already have that. He's already got that working with the 92 source code. So if we could get some kind of way to do that with the 94 code that we have the way it is right now, be a lot easier to add stuff and debug and stuff like that. While we're trying to mess around with the fighting, and for future add-ons and stuff like that.
Yeah, because you'd have to also put the penalties of 5-minute majors or whatever the corresponding penalty for that.
Yeah, so those penalties are actually in the game still.
5-minute majors?
Yeah, so there's a penalty list, right? That's stored in the ROM, and they call it fighting and fighting star. So in 93, when so 92 you had fight and fight instigator, right? So you had a 5-minute and then a 2-minute. The guy got that started. 93 they just made a fight and then a fight check mark. So the guy who won, I think the guy who started the fight or the guy who won the fight got a check mark or something. It just showed it on the penalty screen when they're going to the penalty box. So those penalties are actually still in the game. They're just never, they're not used, but the times I think are set and stuff like that. And the way their statuses for each player, like when you go to like the edit line screen, you could see ice status, ice injury period, stuff like that. There's in 93 there's a status, and I need to check if that status works in 94. Specific status for fighting, and I think that's the major. I think that'll list him as having a major penalty, so he's not coming out of the box on a goal scorer, scoring a goal and things like that. I have to make sure that stuff works too, the major penalties. But yeah, the actual penalty descriptions are in the game already. They were never taken out. Even
the instigator penalties in there too?
Yeah, there's no instigator for 93.
Right.
So that's not there.
So they also took it out for 94.
It's just a fighting and a fighting star. So
yeah.
I think the star just means that's the guy that won the fight. According to when I look at the code, that's who's assigned that specific that specific penalty.
Now, if you could get this done, you and McMarcus and whoever else is helping you all, I don't want it to diminish anybody else's help. Would this be the crowning jewel of your 94 career?
Maybe. Probably not. I don't know how many people want the fighting. I mean,
I want the fighting.
It's nice to have. You could turn it on and off. I mean, it'll be a nice addition, that's for sure.
You know what to me it does? It opens up some players like Probert, for instance, who are just borderline. Like, you're not going to play them against any in front of any of the other Detroit guys. But if penalty is on, maybe you'll sit down Fedorov for Probert with the hopes of having Probert go after one of the other players and take him out for 5 minutes. Maybe, I don't know. It just opens up the doors for stuff like that. But then in the same time, guys like Scott Stevens, who he's one of the better players on Jersey, he'll probably get into more fisticuffs than other guys. And you're gonna lose them, which sucks. But to me, it just opens up doors. It's a new dynamic to the game that doesn't exist right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could be used as a it could be used as a tactic, right? Taking out a guy's best player.
I'd put on Ken Baumgartner or Chris Nyland. I'd throw on those guys, no problem.
I mean, I'm looking at these fighting attributes right now, and Dave Manson.
Yeah, he's a good one. Yeah,
Gary Lehman's a 9. Jeff Sanderson's a 9.
How is
Cam Neely's a 9? Gordon Murphy's a 9.
Okay, we got to talk to the people that made these attributes.
Robitaille's a 9.
How? That guy never.
Neely. Sandstrom's an 8. Tomas Sandstrom's an 8.
But you think about it now, if
Fleury's a 7.
Robitaille and Sandstrom, they're that high up. Could you imagine losing them each or both?
Yeah.
Like now you got to bring in Carson,
major, right?
Yeah, and Granado's got to come in. Carson got in, and it changes the whole dynamic of the LA team. So I mean, it's just
we'd probably adjust the 5-minute major to like a 3-minute. Be honest with you, since you'd have that ability, right? So if you're playing 5-minute periods, you don't want a 5-minute major, right?
I agree, but the 2-minute penalties for just a regular hook check or whatever, like a hook or whatever, those.
No, we make them a minute in the custom
I know
ROMs. It's so much better.
I agree.
2 minutes in a classic game is just
It's brutal. You get 3 or 4
almost
penalties.
half the period. Yeah.
It's crippling in some ways.